I'm your host, Hayley Burns, and welcome to Birthing Beyond 35. This is the podcast for expectant and hopeful mothers everywhere who are in their late 30s, early 40s, who are ready and or perhaps you're just beginning to fathom having a baby a little later in life. Each and every week, my aim is to share stories from all over, directly from mums who have had healthy pregnancies over 35. But before we begin, I obviously have to wish you Happy New Year. I'm very excited to really see where we can take this podcast this year. I've had a few weeks off. I've come back to Sydney, Australia for the summer, but definitely ready to dive in and crush this year and share as many stories as we can. In today's episode, I was fortunate enough to speak with Huti. She's a relationships dynamic coach. She's originally from New Zealand and based in Australia. This is a really unique story. In the space of 26 years, Huti has given birth to 5 children. Yep, you heard that right. She had her very first baby when she was only 15 years old, a child herself. At the time of recording, Huti was 41 years old and she was 39 weeks pregnant. And she's now since given birth safely to a beautiful daughter last week. I've linked all of her social handles in this episode's description so you can follow her and follow along her journey. And you can also listen to her podcast, which I've also linked as well. There's a lot to learn about trusting your body, and Huti speaks beautifully. So I really hope you do enjoy today's episode. Huti, thank you so much for joining me on Birthing Beyond 35. For our listeners, why don't you tell me a little about who's in your family and how long you've been with your partner?
Sure. So I've been with my husband for 18 and a half years. We got together when I was 22. We've got 4 kids and we've got one on the way due in the next week or 2. So I'm 39 weeks pregnant today.
And how old are you right now?
I'm 41.
That's amazing. So let's go back in time a little bit. So when, I guess, did you have your first child?
So I was a really young mum. I had my first son at age 15.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how was
Long
that?
Time ago now.
Yeah.
He's 25 now. That experience, in so many ways, it was easier than when you're older and challenging in other ways. So being a teenager, I don't know if what you were like when you're a teenager, but you just get on with stuff. You just take things on.
Yeah.
You just kind of, it was a pivotal moment in my life. My parents had recently divorced and our family was in a lot of dysfunction, as you can imagine. Getting pregnant at 15, you're not really living in a really balanced home. And so, I fell pregnant. I was, before that, starting to smoke some weed and drink alcohol and just run amok.
Yep.
And the moment I found out I was pregnant was the moment that everything in my life shifted. And I really just decided that I was going to create a life for us that was better than what I was experiencing at the time. So it was a hugely pivotal moment, and just navigating life at that age.
Yeah, I can't imagine. And it's what do you know? I mean, and back in those days, there's no internet, there's no Instagram to get your parenting tips or any tips really. You would have just been going off to your doctor, finding out that information, I guess, and just taking that on.
Yeah, definitely. So I was in shock to start with, because obviously wasn't expecting it, wasn't planned at all. And I have always loved to learn, even though I was running amok at school. I love learning. Education is one of my highest values. So I was a sponge. So anything I found to do with pregnancy, I just would pick up and read over and over again. Like you said, there was no internet. So any doctor's appointments, and in New Zealand, we have really great midwifery care. So I would pick their brain about what's happening with the baby, what stage the baby is at, and just doing everything I could. I was smoking before then. I quit smoking. I quit doing anything that wasn't good for the baby, and just really was on the path of I'm doing everything I can to make sure that this baby's healthy. And there was nothing in my mind, which is kind of a good thing when you don't have the internet around. There was nothing in my mind telling me that anything bad was going to happen, because my experience from what I'd seen in my family, which my mum's one of 8 women. So I've got loads of cousins,
It's so
and
nice.
all I've ever known is that you have a baby and everything kind of works out. I wasn't stressing about anything. I wasn't stressing about the birth.
No.
I knew that millions and billions of women before me had had babies fine. So it wasn't anything that I was ever really stressed about. So there was this kind of innocence in me, not knowing all the things that could go wrong, was really good for me. So that was like the pregnancy side of it. And when I had him, it was like, I think like a lot of people, you don't really know what you're in for when you're going to give birth, particularly at age 15.
No.
But all in all, it was a good experience, straightforward, didn't need any intervention. I was at a small little maternity hospital, so there was just midwives around. And of course, it was painful and all the things, but no complications at all for his birth, at least anyway.
That's amazing. Sorry, you just touched on quickly for his birth. What happened post?
Well, when he was 2 weeks old, I was changing him, and his arm, every time I touched his arm, he would cry, scream. And I said to my mum, because I was still living at home, and I said, something's wrong with Wes. Every time I touch his arm, he screams, and he couldn't actually move it at all. It would just flop down by his side. So we went into the doctors, they referred us to the hospital, and after a few days, nearly maybe 4 or 5 days of testing and x-rays and all sorts of things, they found that he had a bone infection in his arm bone, in his humerus, which was really serious, very, very rare. So once they found out that was the case, he had to have IV antibiotics for 5 weeks.
Gosh.
So I was in hospital with him.
And you're still a kid yourself,
which I didn't mind.
You're still young yourself, trying to cope and like figure all of this out.
Yeah, well, even just from a mother perspective, when your kids are unwell, it's frightening when you're in a hospital and doctors don't know what's wrong with them, and your mind goes to all sorts of places.
Yeah.
But when they eventually diagnosed him, and they said, okay, we found the problem. This is the treatment. You just have to stay in here. He has to stay in here for 5 weeks to have this antibiotics through an IV, which again, you can imagine the implications that can have on someone's immune system. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, I know. I get it. Yeah.
But it was one of the best things that could have happened for us, for where we were, for where I was in my life, because home life wasn't fantastic and food was a bit scarce. So being in hospital and getting fed from the hospital, really good food, and being warm. It was the middle of winter. I didn't have to worry about heating in my bedroom.
That's good.
And I bonded really closely with my dad at that time, because like I said, my parents had divorced. So that allowed us to bond. And again, just that trajectory that I decided to be on when I found out I was pregnant with him just continued to go from there. And that's where I really found my independence. There was not one night I didn't stay with him. I would go home very rarely to just get a few things, but my mum was great. She'd come in every day and she'd bring me clothes, and we didn't live very far away from the hospital. So yeah, he recovered from that. His arm recovered fine, and there wasn't any lasting effects as far as we know. But it was just a pocket of time where, you think life's going a certain way, and then that comes along, and you just nothing else exists other than getting your kid better.
Yeah, all we have is this moment now.
Yeah. So interesting journey. I was still doing high school through like they called it correspondence back then. So like homeschooling kind of thing. And the nurses used to come into me. I got on really well with everyone there. They were really good to me, or good to us. And they'd say, have you done, what subjects have you done today? And they'd check in on me to make sure that I was doing all my work and stuff. So I felt really cared for.
That's good.
I've actually always had great experiences in hospitals. As much as I don't love the health system, and there's lots of things that need to be improved, I've always been really fortunate in the experiences that I've had, that we've always come out better off,
Okay, so you had your baby at 15. How did you get to deciding or coming about your second and third and your fourth
Yeah,
pregnancies?
awesome question
I know I'm
because
going to try and condense it because I know we have so much to talk about,
I
and
know
I know
there
my
is.
mum's going to come back in like an hour with a screaming toddler. So I feel like if we could like condense the first pregnancies.
I met my husband. There's a whole story in that too, but
I love a story.
we
Go, give it to me.
we were living in separate countries. He was living in New Zealand. I was living in Australia. I was never going to go back to New Zealand just because I love Australia so much, right?
Of course.
And we were kind of getting to the point where we were getting serious, long distance. He was thinking about moving over. We were talking about the future, and he said, "Look, something that's really important to me is I want to have children." And at that time, my son was 6 or 7, and I was, in my dental career. I was oral health therapist, so I was really focused on that. I'd been doing it for a few years. I'd not long graduated from university, and I said, "Look, I really want to focus on my career. It's not that I didn't love having him. Becoming a mother was the best thing that ever happened, but I really want to focus on my career." And he
Yeah.
said, "Excuse me."
You'd finally just almost become an adult and have come out of those first years of having a child, and now it's like you can do something for yourself.
Yeah, well, I had him, and I was in high school, and then I went to university. Well, he came came with me to university, and then we moved to Australia, and I was like, right, my career, let's go. And I met this incredible guy, and he pretty much said, this is kind of a deal breaker. Like, if you're certain you don't want to have children, I know I absolutely do. And even though we'd been together for such a short time, I don't think it had even been 6 months at that point. I just could feel his heart, and I was like, he's such an incredible human. I said to him, you need to experience what it's like to be a father. There's nothing like being a parent.
Yeah.
It's just the best thing ever. And I didn't want to deny him of that, and I didn't want to not be in a relationship with him either. So my words to him were, I'll give you one.
Yep.
That's what I said to him. I said, I'll give you one. And so we didn't start trying then, because like we hadn't been together for very long, but at least we were on the same page in terms of our future, that was going to be happening in our future at some stage. And so he moved over from Australia to New Zealand. There was immigration issues because he's Irish.
Okay.
But me, I always find a way. I found a loophole to get him into Australia.
Nice.
And so he moved over with us, with my son, and my son was 6 or 7 at the time. And so within a year and a half, maybe about a year, we did start trying to fall pregnant. And everyone in my family falls pregnant at the drop of a hat, right? There's no problems. They just they look at someone and they're pregnant. And it didn't happen for me that easily. It didn't happen for a long time, actually.
What's a long time?
Well,
if you can recall.
A long time for me. For some people, it might not seem long, but it took 18 months for us to finally fall pregnant.
I mean, that's long. I mean, not long, but I guess in today's information is, hey, if you haven't fallen pregnant within 6 months, go get checked out. If it's a year, then maybe you should start looking into things. So 18 months, I guess, could be taken as a long time.
Yeah, that's what we did. So I had been on the regular pill, and then I got put on the mini pill because I got migraines with aura, and you shouldn't be on the pill. If you get that, you got a higher risk of stroke. So I was on the mini pill, came off the mini pill, and my menstrual cycle just didn't kick in. I did have disordered eating in that time period as well. So my body wasn't as healthy as it really should be when you're trying to fall pregnant. I was
think a bit malnourished.
Yeah, definitely malnourished, and my gut health wouldn't have been great, and just mentally, in terms of my body, I was not in a good state. But I still really wanted to have a baby. So what unfolded was we went to see a specialist. He was going to put me on Clomid, which is like a fertility drug. But then something came up with my husband's with his visa. And so we needed to actually move back to New Zealand in order for him to get citizenship there. Right around the time I was going to start taking this medication, and I cannot get pregnant on my own. And I had a job, and I was doing my second degree at uni. So it was like, okay, we literally can't fall pregnant right now. And so we didn't take the fertility treatment any further. And in hindsight, it was perfect. It was so perfect. So within the next few months, we all moved back to New Zealand. So he came back to New Zealand first. that was where he was getting a citizenship. And I went back to my son and I went back to New Zealand after I finished uni for the second time. And then just moving back to New Zealand from Australia, like I was saying, I had disordered eating. I wasn't really caring for myself in a very good way. And something about changing the environment that I was living in and the people that I was not the people that I was hanging around, but more the culture of the people that I was hanging around. You know, there's a lot of, you know, having a glass of wine and all that kind of thing that happened a lot back then.
Yeah. And you're also young. Like, you're also young. Yeah.
Yeah, I was 20. At this time, I was actually 25, 26, I think.
Yeah.
And so we moved back to New Zealand and just so much changed within me. I just started to relax more in my body. I met some really grounded people. I made some really great relationships with them. We moved to Queenstown in New Zealand, which is a beautiful part of the world. And I just kind of got back to my roots. Nice. And next thing you know, my cycle just came back. We didn't need any intervention at all. And we fell pregnant. Actually, something I forgot to mention was before we fell pregnant with Emma, then we did fall pregnant before going back to New Zealand, and I miscarried.
Okay. So
I did fall pregnant and miscarried, and that was absolutely devastating because we were on the fertility, you know, that pathway of trying to get pregnant, and I eventually did, and just went to have the scan at 11 weeks and there was no heartbeat, and it was absolutely devastating. Like, I was so devastated. And then, you know, if anyone that's gone through that, you've got to go to the part of the hospital where the pregnant people are. So I'm sitting around pregnant women and have to go and decide how the next stages are going to happen. So that was awful. So that happened before you're in the middle of all of that. So when I finally moved back to New Zealand, I think, like I said, my whole body just relaxed and it's like it knew what to do. And then, we fell pregnant with Emma and had her.
Okay, so you're 25 at this point, or 26 when you've had Emma?
I think I had her when I was 27.
Okay.
So that was happening kind of around 26. She came just after my 27th birthday, I think.
Okay. Baby number 3.
Baby number 3. So because we had that journey with Emma, and we were like, right, let's, you know, we want to have another one. I'd given up on that. I'm going to give you one. And I was back in love with being a mom, and it was very different the second time around.
You've got a secure relationship.
I mean, I loved being a mum to Wes, loved it. But being in a relationship with someone made it such a different experience. And obviously I was older and didn't have the stresses and things of being a teenage mum. So we thought, well, we're not going to try and not get pregnant. We just won't use anything. And I didn't even get a period in between Emma and Will. I just fell pregnant. They're 16 months apart. So she would have been, I don't know, it was 9 months before that, 7 months old.
Wow.
Something like that.
Good on you. You're amazing.
Yeah, because I was breastfeeding her and there was issues with her as well. Well, there wasn't issues with her, but the doctors thought there were. So she wasn't feeding as much by that age from me. So, I fell pregnant with Will then. And that was a shock to me because I was like, I didn't think it was going to happen this fast.
Yeah, it's like, we'll just practice and see. And always the way, boom.
And because I hadn't had my I hadn't menstruated. So I really was shocked. I was like, but I haven't even had a sign that I'm going to get it back again. Yeah.
That's insane. Okay, so you've got these got 3 little babies. You've got 2 so close in age. How did the 4th one come about? And how old were you then?
We, I was 27. So at age 29, I believe, I accidentally fell pregnant. And that was like, oh, wow, that wasn't because we'd planned Emma, we'd planned Will. Wesley, the first one, was obviously not planned.
Had you thought we're going to be a family of 3, or were you kind of always open to growing?
Oh, it was, I never had a number in mind. It was more just, do we want to have another one?
Yeah.
You know? And at this stage in my journey, I was absolutely in love with being a mum. Like my most natural state is
in your element.
Yeah, totally. Doesn't mean I didn't have challenges.
No,
Like
of
everyone
course.
goes through the tough stuff, but I just loved it. Really loved it. Felt like I had pretty good balance at the time of work and being a mum, and beautiful community of friends around. Queenstown's such a beautiful place to have children. And yeah, so accidentally fell pregnant. Everything was ticking along fine as per usual, and then went to have the scan at 12 weeks and it was a no-go.
Okay.
So that was tough. There was some things wrong with the baby that were just not able to ever be okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was just another no-go, but in a different way, you know. Devastating again. And because we lived in Queenstown, we had travelled up to Christchurch to get things, you know, kind of through that next stage. And so it was after that because that was a surprise. After that, I said, well, I was actually really looking forward to having another baby. Shall we actually try this time to have one? And so within 2 months of that happening, we fell pregnant with Claire. And yeah, nothing's more healing than for when you lose a baby than to have another baby. And I say that with so much compassion for people that can't fall pregnant or are struggling to fall pregnant. But for me, I know each time that happened, that helped the healing process from the previous experiences, you know, like I can look back on that experience and go, well, I'm so actually grateful for that, because if that didn't happen, we wouldn't have wanted to try and have another baby and we wouldn't have Claire.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, you have to think that way. Yeah, it's not like it's a callous way to think. It's just things happen for a reason and the universe does things to present another alternative in some sense.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I was 30 when I had Claire.
Okay.
So at that stage I had, the three babies / toddlers, and Wesley at the time would have been 14.
That's amazing.
14.
Okay. So now we're going to fast forward a decade. We know now you fell pregnant at 40. You're now 41 and you are due any day. But I guess my question is, in the last decade, after Claire, were you trying again? Did you ever think we want to go for a fifth? Tell us about the story about how you became pregnant now.
So after having Claire, during her pregnancy, I decided, right, this is definitely it. She's going to complete our family. I love where we're at. We're not having any more kids. And so with her pregnancy, everything that happened with her, I was like, this is my last. I'm not having any more, and really soaked it all in, right? And then it was over a year ago, about 18 months ago. This might sound very left wing, but it's me.
We're Kiwi. We're meant to be left wing. It's okay.
Yeah. I've got a very, very strong spiritual side to me. And a friend of mine was visiting, and he held a cacao and breathwork ceremony where I live here on the Gold Coast. And so I went along to it and had a great experience. And during that experience, I had this vision of me holding a baby on our lawn, surrounded by families and community. And it was so profound, this experience, that I came out of it and we had to share what we saw. And I just said, it looks like I'm having another baby. And it was just a knowing in me that was going to happen. It wasn't a decision, should we, shouldn't we? So I said to my husband, look, are you on board? And he's like, yeah. And so we started trying to fall pregnant. And we did. We fell pregnant. And it was actually a year ago, just a few days ago, that I miscarried that baby.
Wow.
So yeah, I fell pregnant. Wasn't as fast. I think it took a couple of months. I wasn't overly worried about it because I thought, I'm 40. Actually, yeah, I would have just been 40 at that stage, maybe just before my birthday last year. And I thought, if I don't fall pregnant, that's fine. I'm not going to go out and try and make anything happen at that stage. And then I did fall pregnant, and that was exciting. And then when I wasn't getting morning sickness like I normally would,
You thought
fifth
the worst.
baby, eighth pregnancy. I kind of knew, I know my body.
Yeah.
And so I said to my husband, I should be feeling sick by now. I'm not feeling sick at all. I think something isn't right. So I went in and got a scan, and they couldn't say for sure because maybe my dates weren't right. And I just knew there was no heartbeat, and it should have been 7 weeks along, and it was measuring 5. And I just thought to myself, this isn't the first time this has happened. This is going to be fine. You were kind of prepared for it. And then when I really sank into what was happening, I just got very emotional. I was surprised at how upset I was because I thought, I've done this before.
Yeah.
But losing a baby is losing a baby, no matter what way you look at it,
Yeah.
So I passed them at home, which was painful. My miscarriages take longer than my giving birth to my babies.
Wow.
It was days of it. And so had that experience at home and just was like, you know what, maybe we don't want to have another one. And so I went kind of through some healing with that. And then I can't remember how many months later, but it was like there was a few different signs that happened to do with the moon and all of this other stuff. I was going through quite a spiritual, I don't want to say awakening, but it was such a
You're
huge
very
time
mindful
for me
about
the previous few years.
Yeah, you're being mindful.
And tuned in and listening to different things, And so I was like, right, if we're going to do it one more time, this is going to be it. And that time we fell pregnant, and that was 9 months ago. So that's how we came to be where I am now, where we're like hanging out for this number 5 baby to come along.
Yeah. So let me ask you. You obviously, you went on that retreat, the cacao retreat experience, and you were ready to have a baby. Was there you obviously seemed like you were very confident. You hadn't had a baby or fallen pregnant for, about 10 years. Did you ever feel apprehensive or cautious because of just biology, because of your age?
I did wonder. There was a couple of people that I was watching on social media. There's a naturopathic doctor from America that I really like listening to. And I've heard about, women finding it hard to fall pregnant at 40. But my experience in my family, my mum had her 5th baby when she was 40. My 2 grandparents had babies when they were 45. So
you felt confident. You hadn't seen any reason, I guess, to why you wouldn't be able to be pregnant.
For me personally, I know people struggle at any age to fall pregnant. But for me, because of, I think there's no magic thing as to why some people can and why some people can't, but I didn't have any beliefs within myself that it's not going to happen or it's not going to be hard. But in saying that, I had the same beliefs back when I was in my early 20s trying to get pregnant, and it didn't happen, or my mid 20s,
Yeah.
So I had the same mindset both times, yet different outcomes, different experiences for different reasons. And I know it was all on purpose and to get me to where I am today. But I mean, it was there because it's hard for it to not be there, internet and conversations. And a lot of people I find these days are having children a lot later, like I don't know what it's like to be an adult without having to be responsible for a child, because I had my first son at 15. But I do know a lot of people that start having kids around 30 plus, and then there's 40 plus. And now there's more and more people that I meet, especially recently with me sharing on social media, that they had their kids when they were 40 or over 40, or one of my son's best friend's mum had him when she was 48 and he was her miracle baby. So I love hearing stories about how I find most people that are in their 40s tend to have had quite the journey to getting to being able to fall pregnant. It's not that they've waited, it's often that they've tried and it just hasn't happened for some reason. I love seeing all of the things. It's something that I've really found really helpful with social media. We can look at it through such a negative lens, but for me, during my pregnancy, I've really seen so much positive information out there in terms of pregnancy and what you can do and your health and how everything is linked up. But for me personally, I didn't have a belief there to tell me that it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Because I've seen evidence in my family that it can.
Yeah. You'd mentioned you'd had some conversations with people about getting pregnant older and stuff. What has your experience been, I guess, with any doctors or midwives or nurses that you've come across at this age? Negatives, positives?
Well, this is a theme that I've had in my whole parenting journey. So, being a young mum, there's of course going to be people that have opinions about that. I never experienced anyone saying to my face anything negative about being a teenage mum, ever. One person once did.
Yeah.
And so I've had the same experience being 40. No one has, I haven't had anyone say anything negative at all. It's been positive. The biggest remarks I get is, oh my gosh, you've got 5 kids.
Yeah.
But even that isn't really that prevalent for me in my life.
No.
No, nothing negative. I have heard the term geriatric uterus, which just made me laugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was from someone on social media. And yeah, no, I've had a very positive experience. Just, I can't tell you why. I just, everything to do with pregnancy and motherhood for me has always been that. So
I'll interject. What things do you think, I guess being older and being aware of just biology and bodies, what things have you been more mindful of this time? Like nutrition wise, more rest?
Well, definitely rest for sure. I'm feeling it at the moment. And I don't know that it's necessarily my age. I think it's more the heat of living in Australia is like
it's very hot right now.
Level. Because if I'm in air conditioning, I'm pretty good. But I wouldn't say it's my age. I would say it's my awareness. I look at age, I don't really look at age as a barrier in any way, young, old. I don't think it should affect what we choose to do in our lives, unless there's something that's happened over time that has deteriorated, right? So if you're unhealthy at 20 and things don't change in your life, you're going to be even more unhealthy when you're 40. I, about 8 years ago, had a really big shift in my health where I had some gut health issues. And so now I live a very clean, very healthy life, as healthy as I can. I try and eat organic when I can and all of those things. So I was already doing all of that before falling pregnant. So I did look into things like folic acid and methylfolate and all of that kind of stuff. And I chose supplements that I believe are going to work for me better than what some mainstream ones are recommended by.
Well, why don't you just run off a little list right now for anyone listening that would love to know what you've been taking?
Well, mainly the methylfolate for me. I was working before I finished up, I stepped out of my dental career 2 years ago. I was working in a holistic dental practice. So I had a lot of exposure to, things outside of the medical system. And I'm not here to badmouth the medical system. I'm so grateful for it, but there's so much more information out there. Yeah. And the risks of having folic acid, and there was nothing in my biology that told me it was wrong. I took it with all the previous kids, but when I did my own research and looked into it, methylfolate was a better option for me. I spoke about it with my doctor. He was fine with it. He wasn't like cheering me on, but he was just my regular GP. He was fine with it. And then I went to where I get my supplements, and it would be the kind of supplements you'd get from a naturopath, not just from an off-the-shelf brand you can buy anywhere. And I really did my research. There's key people that I follow on social media when it comes to health in general. And they had done some things around being pregnant and that kind of stuff. So I made sure, the list of supplements, the majority of people will benefit from. I just made sure that the supplements that I was taking had those. And at the same time, I listened to my body. So when I started taking some of these supplements, my body didn't like it. It made me feel really unwell. So I really tuned into what felt good for me when I was taking it and what didn't. Something I did experience in this pregnancy that I hadn't before was really, really, really low iron. Whether it's my age, whether it's my stage, and I don't know, but it was so low that I had to get an iron infusion.
Oh wow!
And I really had to advocate for myself on that because my doctor wasn't concerned about it at all. And I was feeling it physically. Like I was so just, my brain, I couldn't think properly. I was out of breath. And so when I went and saw the midwives, because I'm under public care here in Australia, saw the midwives at the hospital, and they said, look, if you're feeling that way, maybe you should have an infusion. So I had to really kind of be like, look, this is where I'm at. This is what I want to happen. And I did. I took the reins that I always have. That's just the way that I roll in life. And I even went and saw the midwife the other day. And I was telling her about, going and seeing a physiotherapist and asking my doctor for these tests that he hasn't tested me for that I know are important.
All he does is just does the basic textbook stuff on how to deliver a baby. Not being disrespectful, but it's true. But a lot of OBs and gynecologists don't really look outside the realm that they've been taught when there is so much more information out there these days.
And he was only when I told him what I wanted and why I wanted it, he was fine with it. I was like, I want you to check me for this, this, and this. Last 3 pregnancies, I got tested for all of these. I didn't have any symptoms, but I was actually positive. And so that's what happened. He tested me for some things. They came out positive. So I got to treat it. And I know now that it's not a problem, but I did have to really take the reins on that. And the midwife the other day said to me, oh, it's really good that you're doing that. And I said, well, I have to. If I don't do it, no one else is going to do it for me.
Exactly. You have to be your own cheerleader.
Yeah, well, I think that experience having my son in hospital at 15, I learned very, very quickly. And like I said, we've always had great care, but I learned really quickly when your intuition tunes in with something that's not right with your baby, with your body, with your health, if something's not making sense, ask questions and question what they're saying. And until you get an answer, until you're satisfied, because you have to, because they've got stuff that they're doing. And we'd love to think that everyone that's caring for us is only looking at us in that moment. But the truth is a lot of them have a lot of stuff going on in their lives and their careers and all that kind of thing. So being tuned into ourselves is very, very important, especially if you're on a fertility journey or you're starting out later, and you might not have the experience of whatever that is. The great thing I think about having a baby at 40 is your life experience. If it's your first baby, you might not have the pregnancy experience, but you've got life experience. You know when things are fishy or when they're not right, that's one thing I'm really grateful for being at this stage that's so different to the earlier stages. It's just my experience and my awareness with life in general. I don't hear people talk about that when it comes to having a child at this age, because they might put themselves in a box of saying, well, it's my first. It's okay, it's your first and there's lots to learn and experience, but there's so much that you've learned in your life that you can just transplant into this experience.
You are due any day now. We're a week out from Christmas. With all the experiences you've had giving birth, and obviously I know that we cannot have a plan because nothing ever really goes to plan, but what kind of birth are you envisioning for or hoping for? What are you going for this time?
So this time around, my mind wanted me to have a home birth just because of where I'm at in my life, right? I was really I want to have a home birth. But when it came down to actually speaking to the midwife and organizing a home birth, my body was like, no, you actually want to be in hospital to do this. So the first thing was making the decision about where I'm going to have her and being okay with that. I've seen a lot of people share that they were going to have it this way and they were so fixed with that and they weren't open to it changing. And mostly the ones that I saw, people saying they were going to have a home birth and they ended up in hospital.
Yeah.
I'm saying I want to be in hospital. And I'm open to potentially having a home birth because I have very quick births and we live about half an hour to 45 minutes from the hospital. So the plan is that with the previous 3 kids, I went into labor early hours in the morning, went straight to the hospital. My last daughter was born in 2 hours. So it was really quick. And so this time I haven't really ever had any, this is how it's going to happen. It's just, I'm so open to the experience. What I envision, this is down to details, is me waking up about 3 a.m, me saying to my husband, it's go time. Let's get in the car. I get to the hospital. I have her within an hour or two. We're there. We hang out for a bit. they want to do their checks and all that kind of stuff. And then we come back. So my plan is to have it like the previous births, natural. I didn't need any intervention. I didn't have any pain relief. That's just because it was so fast. Yeah. And plus the two places I had my kids were both maternity wings. So there was no option for an epidural. Mm-hmm. You had to drive 2 hours to get to the nearest hospital for any of that stuff anyway. Wow. So it wasn't even an option for me. They had gas, but I was afraid it was going to make me feel sick.
Yeah.
So I don't have any reason to believe that it's going to be too different to the other ones. But in saying that, I'm going to be in a setting where if I need some extra help, it's going to be there. I've had people ask me, you know, do you think you're going to be okay advocating for yourself? And I was like, well, yeah.
100%.
Of course. Yeah. Like no one's going to, I haven't, that was such a funny question to hear because I just based on my own personal experience. And I also understand other people have been in situations where things have gone where they haven't expected and they felt very disempowered in that setting. So it was an interesting question to be asked, but I was like, no, I feel really good about it. So while I say I have no expectations, I've visualized this birth so many times.
So exciting.
But I just have this trust that the way that she's going to come into the world is going to be perfect. If it ends up being me at home and there's peak hour traffic and there's no way I'm going to have a baby in a car, we might end up having her at home just because of, you know, I don't want to be in a car.
We'll figure it out. What will be. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the plan. What I'm most looking forward to with this one is the moment that we come home and the other kids get to meet her.
So exciting.
That's like, I'm so
fun.
Besides meeting her, like my husband and I meeting her for the first time, is actually bringing her home and almost handing her over a little bit in a way. You know, it's very different.
You've got a full house to help you. That's so amazing. You know, your kids are old enough that they can hold her while you go and take a shower and just all of these things that are going to help with as well.
Yeah. It was so different before when I had the toddlers. You know, anyone that has multiple kids out there, it's full on when you have multiples and you've got all these things to do, and I've been in that space and it's amazing and challenging and it's all of the things. But this time around, I'm like, I feel like the last 25 years of being a mum,
amazing.
I get a bit of payback, you know?
First kid. It's just amazing. You had your first baby 25 years ago and here you are again at 41. So I'll just quickly, last kind of question, what advice or what do you say to people that, you know, I guess still a little bit caught up on what's right and how we're meant to live our life and society standards of when people should be mothers. What encouragement would you give to women in their late 30s and 40s who would love to have a baby for the first time or who have been struggling and trying to have a baby?
For anyone who is out there who is trying to fall pregnant for the first time, who's in later stages, whether you're late 30s, early 40s, wherever you are in your journey, my advice would be just there is a process for everyone individually. And it's probably the last thing anybody wants to hear when they've been trying or they've had challenges and over and over and over again. But I think knowing, for me, what helps me get through things is knowing that things happen for a specific reason and trusting in that and following that path. Everyone's already on their journey. Trust yourself more than anything at this time. I think a lot of people hand over their decisions, what they think's right for them, what they think's wrong for them, and they go down the path of just following what everybody else has to say when so many of us already know what we need to do, what we need to experience, maybe what we need to work on or let go of or whatever it is. Trust yourself, trust your body. And I know for me, this time around, I didn't realize how much tension I was holding actually in my perineum area, you know, down around there when I went into a physiotherapist, because I'm so down for learning more and more just because I've had, you know, this is my 5th pregnancy. I want to know as much as I can. And she was getting me to relax my muscles down there. She's great, female physio. And I did not realize how much tension I was holding down there. And so I had to actually tense and then relax. And it was when I let go and relaxed, I noticed over the next week how often I would clench down there. And for anyone that's spiritually minded, that's your base chakra. That's where you feel safety and security. And that's really key when it comes to allowing ourselves to receive and to be able to fall pregnant, being creative, being able to give birth. I wonder how many people that struggle with giving birth is from this tension, this whatever may have created it, whether you want to use the words of trauma or past experiences or not feeling safe or whatever it is actually being stored and held there. So mine would be trust yourself, trust your body. If you don't feel like you can trust yourself or trust your body, find someone who can help you get there. Because it's so much more than just physical biology. I believe the biology comes from so much more than just that. We're mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritual beings. So I would be looking at it if you're struggling, maybe look outside the box of what you've been trying to work with. And when you really have that sincere longing, trust whatever comes into your sphere. You might find something pop up on social media, or you'll have a conversation with someone that's totally not what you'd considered before, but go down the path and just see what's there, because you never know. When we're really sincere and what we're putting out there, I think we get the answers that we need at the right time.
That's beautiful. Yeah, just have an open mind, which I get is hard. It's hard. Not everyone can be open straight away, but that is such beautiful advice. And Huti, so once again, you were saying you were 39 weeks and how many days along right now?
39 weeks and that's it today. Okay, so today's day 1 of my 39th week.
Okay. Yeah. How is there a stage you wouldn't want to go past where you would consider, would you ever consider, I don't like induction at all, but being older, is there a point where you think, oh, okay, say you get to 41 weeks, would you be like, okay, let's try and get her out? Or what are you thinking there?
I haven't let my mind go to the point where if I'm 2 weeks late, what will I do? I'm a very much a stage by stage person. So Amazing. Each day at a time, I've just had 3 days of my first experience of prodromal labor. I've never had that before. Okay. And for anyone listening, that is where you have painful contractions. They don't lead to labor. They don't make you dilate.
Is that like Braxton Hicks? Is it the same thing?
Braxton Hicks is different. So Braxton Hicks is just the tightening of the uterus. That's quite uncomfortable. I've been getting them since 15 weeks. Yep. Prodromal labor is actually, it can go on for a few days and it feels like early labor, but it's actually not. And it's just painful. And so I thought I was going into labor and I read about it yesterday, and last night I didn't have any at all. Okay. So when these different things happen, when you're looking to, I've got my vision for what I want to have happen when she comes, right? Yeah. But if I try and plan out every single step, there's so many things that could change or and I don't want to try and feel like I'm trying to control the process. I'm totally open to it. So I know some people decide they want to go over or not. For me, I'm just going to tune into what feels good for me. Yeah. If there's some evidence that she needs to come earlier for whatever reason, maybe I've got less fluid, or maybe in me I'm going, oh no, she needs to come out now. That'll be what makes my decision for it. Yeah. At the moment, things are going well. Exciting. But it would be mainly the gut intuition is the best thing that we have, particularly as women with our bodies when we have babies inside of us. There's a link there. So I would just be trusting in that. And but there is a part of me that's like, I'm not even considering if I go over 2 weeks over. First of all, I've not had that experience. And second of all, I won't know what that's like till I'm in it. And that is when I can make the decision about what I'm going to do at that time.
Amazing. Thank you for talking to me. I really appreciate it. You're incredible. I'm excited to share this once babies come. I'm just going to be waiting and watching and stalking your social media.
Oh, cool. Thank you for that.
Thanks, babe. I'll talk to you soon.
Have a good day.